Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final day of the symposium on extreme maritime weather. And starting today to remind ourselves that we should congratulate ourselves with World Maritime Day. And on that particular subject, I'd like to pass the floor to IMO Secretariat for some logistical announcements first. Mr. Maramoto, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning and happy World Maritime Day. I have received this instruction from my colleagues who organizes the event today. There is a specific procedure, particularly the access to extremely secured event site. We will have to follow a certain procedure. So please do listen carefully, for which I have just made some slides. I don't have the, can I ask click next? Okay. Right. Okay, the events officially start from 1800 or 6 o'clock, but we are all expected to arrive before the official event. The venue will be open from 5:30 or 17:30, and here's a text of what I've been told to announce. Again, of course, those participants attending this symposium are welcome to attend. But should you decide to remain in the building after the closure of the symposium, kindly avoid delegate lounge on the first floor, where the main event is taking place, because the preparations are already taking place. After the closure, this room will have to be vacated as soon as practically possible. So I'm sorry, but if you want to chat with your colleagues, please consider wrapping up your luggage and leave the room as soon as practically possible. There are plenty of space in front of us in the corridor, but again, please avoid going down to the delegate lounge. And also, access to the ground floor should be for transit only. There are some few chairs, but please do not use those chairs for, again, socializing and so on. Please avoid that area as well. Delegate wishing to leave the building after the symposium, of course, you are free to do so, but please make sure that you keep your badge. There are 3 types of badges, as you may have noticed. The one with the normal IMO delegates badge with your photo on it, you can keep it, and you can come back using that badge. For those who have the paper WMO logo on it, that doesn't work, as you might have seen with the electronic gate. That, if you want to leave the building, you can keep the badge, but you can show the badge to the security when you come back at the reception and explain that you're one of the participants to the symposium and invited for the reception. The third category of badge is the IMO visitors badge. When you leave the building, this badge will have to be returned to the security. When you come back, you have to ask that badge again. Okay, so the IMO visitor's badge without the photo on it will have to be returned when you exit the building. The same applies to the, after the closure of the reception, that badge will need to be returned. And talking about the badge, within the building today, because of the heightened security, please do wear your badge at all times, as long as you are in the building. There will be a formal receiving line by the Secretary General. For those who wish to join the line, I'm sure there will be a long queue. You may, of course, wish to join the queue, shake hands with the Secretary General, but the access point, you will simply see the long queue anyway, but that will be, the access is from the steps on the ground floor behind the security desk. For those who do not wish to join the queue, may still access to the ground floor, to the delegate lounge, but again, the access point is on the ground floor. You will have to go down to the ground floor to come up on the stairs to access to the reception, even without joining the queue. I think this is it, and if you have any questions, please do come to me or Mason, who should be able to clarify. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Captain Muramoto, for these extensive instructions regarding the reception of today's World Maritime Day. Like I said, the final day, day 4 of the symposium on extreme maritime weather, and today's session will be all about strengthening collaboration, a topic which was addressed several times before this week. Another thing which was addressed through informal request was, like we are experiencing today, we have a photographer with us, and we have seen many presentations from many speakers. Both the photos and presentations will be and are made available through the website. During today's closure session, more information, including a hyperlink and maybe some other graphics, will be shown to make it more easier for you and remind you to visit that website. Now on content, session 7. The focus for this is to further explore how we can expand our collaboration and provide a summary of the symposium. That's a secondary task of today. The moderator for today's session is Mr. John Parker, and in case you should have missed it, his bio is on the website. And since he has spoken several times previously this week, I will just hand over to John. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Co-Chair. This session will run a little differently than our previous panels of experts that were followed by a separate discussion. So today, this morning, we will hear from all of our panelists first, holding your questions following each speaker, and then transition directly into our panel discussion once we've heard from them all. Without further delay, though, I'd like to get things started. I'd like to introduce Dr. Bev McKenzie. Dr. McKenzie is the head of intergovernmental engagement at the Baltic and International Maritime Council, the world's largest direct entry membership organization for the shipping industry. She is the London-based representative at the IMO, providing the link between BIMCO and the IMO and other intergovernmental organizations to ensure their technical expertise can be best utilized to support practical and harmonized regulation for the shipping industry. She has expertise in operational oceanography, ocean observing, and other issues related to maritime industry. Go ahead, Dr. McKenzie.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and of course, a very happy World Maritime Day. Thank you very much to the organisers for the invitation to speak at this final session. As mentioned in the introduction, I'm a physical oceanographer by training, so I found it both personally and professionally interesting and also inspiring. The intervention I'm going to make today hopefully will offer some insights into how we keep shipping moving and how we keep this shipping moving safely, efficiently, and with minimal impact on the environment. My intervention will form two parts. Firstly, I'll provide a discussion on the role of commercial contracts, and secondly, a more kind of helicopter and personal view of the potential for ships to potentially contribute to data collection, which has formed a big underlying theme of the presentations and the discussions. So yes, I did introduce BIMCO earlier in the week, but we are, as said, the world's largest international shipping organisation. We represent 62% of the world's tonnage, with over 2,000 members in more than 130 countries. We help ensure a resilient and sustainable shipping industry, whilst safeguarding trade in a world that's constantly changing and challenged with pandemics, wars, and extreme weather, of course, to mention just a few of those challenges. So let me start with the role of the ship owner and the commercial relationships that keep trade moving. So we've heard, particularly over the past few days, about the role that weather routing companies play in maritime operations. Their guidance on the safest, most efficient routes for ships is extremely important. They help our ships avoid severe weather conditions, reduce fuel consumption, and ensure safe and timely arrivals. And they are primarily used to provide a commercial advantage to ships. So we've heard that the weather routing companies use advanced meteorological data and predictive models to offer these real-time routing advice. Commercial clauses are used to address the use of these services within time charter parties. One example, if you want to look it up, is conveniently named the BIMCO Weather Routing Clause for Time Charter Parties 2006. So if you Google that, you can get all the information you need. And the time charter parties play a role in the use of this weather forecasting data. And they do so because while the ship owner is responsible for providing the vessel, the crew, and covering the operational expenses like maintenance and navigation, the charterer maintains the commercial operation, which includes selecting the cargo, the routes, and the ports. It's been mentioned a few times about the role of the master and the role of the weather routing companies. The clauses in place require the master to comply with the reporting procedures of the weather routing service engaged by the charterers. However, coming back on the points made, the master is not obligated to follow the routing advice if he or she believes it will compromise the safety of the ship, crew, or cargo. It was interesting to hear from Intertanko yesterday of some of their concerns with weather routing companies. From a commercial point of view, there are also occasional disputes that need to be resolved between the charterer and the ship owner, particularly around the vessel's performance. And here, differing weather reports can be central to the disputes. So there's been a number of court cases that have highlighted discrepancies between weather information from the independent companies and the weather information reported in the ship's logs. Generally, the ship's reports are favoured, unless a contract will specify otherwise. So this provides a bit of an incentive to the ship to collect and log weather information in a good way. And we heard that yesterday that a lot of the ships do this and they provide this information straight back to the routing companies. And this route planning and data collection is also crucial should the worst happen at sea and an insurance claim, for example, needs to be made. And evidence, particularly of extreme weather conditions, needs to be provided as part of that evidence. The ship would always need to provide very detailed, reliable evidence, so the official weather reports from recognised meteorological services, the logbook, testimonies from the ship's crew, photos, videos, satellite images, data from instruments, and details on deviations. So we have these commercial kind of imperatives, and why am I talking about them? Well, in the absence of regulation, it might be prudent to look at the role that these commercial contracts and clauses could play in standardising and regulating the use and collection of weather information. At the heart of the issue of sharing of the information with the private weather providers and the public schemes is this commercial sensitivity issue, which we heard about yesterday. There is commercially sensitive information that ship owners would prefer to keep confidential because it helps them maintain this competitive edge in the market. So, of course, a commercial solution becomes important. We need to decouple the commercially sensitive information with what might support the public good, the kind of weather information that could be used to support the improvements in the public forecast, for example. Contracts and clauses we have in the shipping industry enable clear guidelines on obligations of parties involved. And new contracts and clauses are constantly being developed, particularly as we move towards a decarbonised and more efficient industry. And these are showing us there are different ways we can do things within the commercial world. For example, soon we will have a BIMCO data sharing and energy efficiency performance clause. You can also look that up on Google. And this is a step towards that transparency. It's not designed for weather and climate information, but it could be adapted if we looked at it in a different way. And we are seeing transparency in the industry that we haven't seen before as we become more decarbonised. So we do need to look at how we can capitalise on this. So that's my first section on the commercial side. I'd like to have a bit of a kind of more overview of what I've heard and taken away from the past few days. I think one of the conclusions we might reach is that the many ship owners and crews are just not aware of the voluntary observing schemes and others, or the importance of their contributions to these schemes. There may be a perceived lack of direct immediate benefits or incentives for ships or seafarers to participate, especially if a company is already paying a weather routing service. In turn, we heard that gale warnings, for example, need to remain free, and the basic role of the public services needs to continue. We also heard that fishers are busy catching fish to worry about taking met observations. So I asked one of my colleagues, an ex-seafarer, their opinions on this matter, and this is their reply, which I thought was quite interesting. They said, "When I was second mate, I was forced, use the word forced, to send voluntary reports to AMVA, the Automated Mutual Assistance Vessel Rescue System, if you don't know what it is, programme. In those days of paper charts, showing their age here, I used to feel that sending information daily for this programme was an admin burden. And in return, what did we get? Nothing. The position reports help when the ship gets into distress, but we never got into distress, so never reaped the benefits of the system. With time, people stopped sending the reports, and with increased comm systems, nobody saw the need to report." So I think the message here is, like fishers being busy fishing, seafarers are generally busy seafaring. We've also heard over the past days that we need to encourage data sharing and collaboration between ships, research institutions, and meteorological organisations. Generally, collaboration and harmonisation across the various digital services is seen as a good way forward to ensure better coverage, as well as automating these weather observations. A possible way forward could be for ships to consider exchanging data by use of the IMO Compendium, a catalogue of data maintained by the IMO Facilitation Committee. And this is designed to facilitate easier, smarter data exchange between ships and shore. Ships may just be more interested in exchanging information if it can be done without use of separate software from what they already have on board. So integration with what is existing is preferred. From a bigger perspective, I think we should be able to capitalise on the Ocean Decade actions and momentum. There should really be a concerted effort from those involved in the strategic direction of the decade, and it's great to hear the IMO is now more involved. To actively engage with our industry on these matters. And we are ready to be engaged. We stand waiting. And as a final point, as a kind of topic of interest of mine, we looked at kind of the broader use of ships of opportunity. We did a sweep of our members to see whether anyone was participating in kind of bigger ships of opportunity projects. And we found quite a few are, but they're all putting them in this ESG bucket. Effectively, they've decoupled these ocean observation programs from weather and physical ocean observations They've started doing measurement on microplastics, on plankton, marine mammal observations. They're becoming increasingly popular, potentially because they're an easier ESG sell. The public perceives these topics to be very important. They're very emotive. People love whales, they hate plastics. You know, they're very visual, easy to see. And for some reason, they've become more palatable for the crew. In fact, when I spoke to some of our members who are doing these projects, we had the crew love participating in them. It relieves the boredom on board. So somewhere a PR piece of work has gone on there that we've maybe lacked here. And this ESG reporting may present an opportunity for us to improve the data collection. Companies, particularly in the EU, will have to start disclosing climate-related risks. The general feeling is shipping is not going to be exempted from ESG reporting for long, especially not with EU regulation coming. That there's a potential that collecting and sharing weather data could enhance risk assessments, the climate risk assessments, providing this clearer picture of how the weather is impacting their business operations and the supply chain, and also collaboration with meteorological agencies that benefit both the company and the broader community can also tick a nice S box demonstrating social responsibility. There's also something else interesting to consider in why these companies engage in these Ship of Opportunity programs. And they often do so because they have a personal relationship with the institution for which they're collecting the data. We've heard family, friends, past co-workers are working in these scientific institutions. They met someone at a conference over a drink and they had a great conversation about how good it would be to do these things, or they're just based close by. You have a geographical proximity to an institution, form a relationship. So we've kind of touted this kind of matchmaking service, which would take the needs of science and match it with the specifics of the shipping industry, and look at how a ship might facilitate the uptake. So happy to discuss that further. So to wrap up, and I'm afraid I've taken a bit long, I think it's important that we always remember that shipping is largely a compliance-based industry. It works within a framework of rules and contracts. They form the basis for business. Companies participating in voluntary schemes, such as slowing down to avoid whales, for example, are often the exception and not the rule. The link between this weather data and the operations of our ships is very strong, but we need to tell this story more widely, and we need to do this in a language that seafarers and ship owners understand. Co-creation is a buzzword, but it really does apply here. We need to look at collaborative agreements that emphasize the importance of equal contribution. It's very important that the playing field is level and any incentive programs are equitable across the industry. But finally, I think the key message, and I hope it's shared, is that we have to be better at storytelling. We really need to define these links between weather and operations. We need to understand and communicate the uncertainty in forecasting, which helps us extol the benefits of improved data collection. Ultimately, good weather data, better forecasts help make operations safer. And we need to do this as we enter a world where extremes may become even more extreme. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to questions.
Great, thank you very much, Dr. McKenzie. We're going to move to our next presenter. He'll be presenting via video. He's not in the room with us today. Mr. Jonathan Green is an independent tour operator and the founder and director of the Galapagos Whale Shark Project. He's an elected fellow of the Royal Geographic Society in London and has worked in the Galapagos Islands, the Amazon, Antarctica, the Arctic, Africa, Central and South America, and Indonesia as a diver, a photographer, leading and participating in expeditions. In 2009, he led a dive expedition to explore the undersea world of Antarctica in a 70-foot sailboat. So we'll turn it over to the video.
Well, very good afternoon to everyone. My apologies for not being there in person, but life and work plans took me elsewhere, and I'm actually out at sea at this moment. My name is Jonathan Green, and I work as a marine scientist and also an expedition leader. As a scientist, I'm working principally in the Eastern Tropical Pacific and an expedition leader in the polar regions. But in both roles, weather forecasting and online forecasting are some of the most important tools that we have for the safety and success of the operations that we're running. When I'm working in polar regions, working on expedition vessels, these are vessels that may be as small as yachts with 12 people, including crew and passengers, or they may be vessels up to 120 passengers, 70, 80 crew, or even up to 200 passengers and 130 crew. So my job as expedition leader is to liaise directly with the captain, the bridge officers, and the crew that are involved in the day-to-day running of all operations of the ship. So weather forecasting is, as I say, crucial to all of our operations. With the ship, the captain, of course, has the final decision with everything which is associated with the ship operation itself. However, the moment that we step off onto the Zodiacs, which we use then for our land-based operations or for exploring around different areas, then I usually will take the decision as to whether or not it is what we deem a safe operation. And that's where the weather forecasting online tools that we have are so important. So I've been asked a number of specific questions, which I'll try to address, and I hope I cover the topics that are of most interest. So we don't actually, or I don't use GNDSS on a day-to-day basis. That will be used by the bridge and by the captain, and they will refer that information or give that information to me if they deem that pertinent to day-to-day operations. So I'm not the person to really discuss or suggest any ideas about that particular online system. Risk management, of course, takes in a number of factors and elements, and when you're working in areas of extreme weather such as the Antarctic, very, very quickly conditions can change, and that's why we use the forecasting online systems. We're making landings with small boats. These are Zodiacs, which can carry up to 15 or 16, including the driver. We usually operate with no more than a driver and 10 people on the Zodiacs, just for safety, for maneuverability, so it makes it a more stable craft with that. What we're looking at are the chances of increased wind, increased swell, whether ice moves in or not into the area. So we use forecasting systems for long term, and by long term I refer to 10, 12, maybe 14 days, but the actual usefulness of most of these tools we find is limited to maybe 48 or a maximum of 72 hours. And certainly when we're planning a specific landing, we're checking these 48 or 72 hours beforehand, but then in the hours leading up to an operation, we will be checking the online tools frequently. So every few hours we'll be checking them, and then frequently as we're actually coming down to the time when we will be disembarking. What we're looking at there are more the trends. So if we have a low pressure system that is moving in, then of course that might affect the crossing of the Drake Passage, for example, or indeed any open ocean crossing. So some of those could include going from the Falkland Islands across the Southern Ocean, the Scotia Sea, to South Georgia, or from South Georgia to the peninsula, or South Georgia back to Ushuaia and mainland South America. So any big low pressure systems that are going through would indicate probably whether it's a good time to try and attempt that particular crossing. What we're looking at there, of course, will be the movement of the system itself, the wave height, and of course, constant winds. Now, constant winds are often lower than the actual real winds themselves. This is something we tend to find. So when we're using, for example, perhaps the tool we go to with most frequency, windy.com, we will actually put it onto wind gusts. And we have found that this tends to be more accurate and more reflective of constant winds rather than the constant winds themselves. So because that also gives us a little bit of a buffer, we'll use wind gusts and say, is that above our operational ceiling? Is that something that we deem safe? We're also looking at wave heights, but we're looking at wind direction, and then we're using other tools. So for example, we use Polar View quite frequently, and specifically the ice satellite images, so we can download those these days. This is something which is relatively new. We can actually download fairly high resolution ice charts that are often 48 hours old. However, they give you a reasonably good idea of where the fast ice might be, where large icebergs might be, but particularly where fast-moving brash ice and bergy bits might be. So it's often the smaller ice and sea ice itself, which is then floating, which might become an issue and a danger to any kind of shoreside operation or off-the-ship operation. So whereas it might be safe for the ship to travel through somewhere like the Gerlache Straits or Branfield Straits in brash ice and sea ice, we can't run a land-based operation if we think that that ice is going to move in, because of course Zodiacs cannot make their way through. So we're looking at pretty much those three sites at that time: the Norwegian Meteorological Institute with their ice charts, the Polar View with the satellite imagery, and windy.com. Also, when we're using Windy, we're using the ECM weather forecasting, as we find that tends to be more consistent, slightly more accurate than the other models that you can access on that program. So, key decisions are taken when, of course, we're crossing the Drake Passage, and we will discuss this sometimes with the captain, and the captain may suggest that we delay a day of departure before we head out from mainland South America, or we leave a day before when we're leaving the Antarctic Peninsula to return back to South America, to Ushuaia, Punta Arenas, wherever the ship is operating. So any navigation across open ocean, we're looking several days in advance just to make sure and see if there are any big low pressure systems that are moving in, and that might bring forward or delay our departure or return to a specific area. We're also looking at access to certain areas. So in a normal itinerary, we may include visits to areas through the Antarctic Sound and into the Weddell Sea, or we might go through the Lemaire Channel and then south of the Antarctic Circle. Both of those areas come with their own type of risks, and most of that is associated with high winds, some swell to a certain extent, but it's the ice that we're looking at. So days before, at least 72 hours, sometimes more, before going into one of those areas, we'll be looking with the bridge, and myself will be looking specifically at wind direction. Is the wind coming from the south? Is it blowing ice up from the pack ice? Will the ice edge be disintegrating in an area, which means there's going to be a lot of fast-moving brash ice? As we get closer to the time of running the shoreside operation or making some form of excursion or landing, do we know where those bodies of ice are, and what is the likelihood that they can move in? So one example, a prime example, is Brown Bluff in the Antarctic Sound or Paulet Island. Both of these areas can be get trapped in ice very, very rapidly. Not as much the mother vessel, as I mentioned before, but the small Zodiacs. And I have been caught on the shore in Brown Bluff by very fast-moving ice for up to about 7 hours, I think was the maximum that we spent there. But during those 7 hours, people can get hypothermic. You don't necessarily know the medical history, the fine detailed medical history of everybody that is on the vessel. They all declare their medical history, but that won't necessarily include all the information that you need. Or you can get developing medical issues whilst you're in that extreme environment. So people get very, very cold, they can get hypothermic. Although we take equipment, shore stranding equipment on land with us, in case of that kind of event, we would prefer to avoid it. And of course, using these forecasting tools, we can generally see if there is a risk of high winds or increasing winds, swell, and as I say, fast-moving ice. In all of these scenarios, perhaps the only thing that we cannot forecast, and this is perhaps more areas like South Georgia, for example, than the Antarctic Peninsula, but it happens frequently enough in both areas that we have to take it into consideration, and those are the unpredictable and unforecasted katabatic winds. Now, we know that there are a certain number of conditions that are more likely to produce these very, very powerful hurricane force winds, which literally come out of nowhere. I've disembarked from a vessel. We've had constant 5 to 10 knot winds. We've launched a number of small Zodiacs. We've got a kayaking operation going on with as many as a dozen small kayaks that are out there with their own safety vessel that are covering them. And about a half an hour, 45 minutes later, wind speeds suddenly go up vertiginously. So through 20 knots to 30 knots to 40 knots to 60 knots to 70 knots. And that can all happen in a matter of minutes. So at that time, we need to react very quickly in order to be able to ensure that we can get everybody back to the ship as fast as possible. Of course, we do have contingency plans. We're very practiced in all of these kind of operations, but it would be good to perhaps understand a little more about what is it that triggers these particular kind of events. We know that there's a disparity between hot and cold areas, temperature, so if you get a warm, sunny day, you get cold air which is trapped over the main body of ice, the warmer marine environment, and at some point they're going to switch, or there'll be a compensation of those two different temperature areas. So all of these things need to be taken into consideration. So we use the forecasting tools, the online forecasting tools, every single day. Frequently throughout the day, I'll be in contact with the bridge. They'll be constantly online, looking at tendencies, and it's those tendencies that tell us whether or not we can run what we deem to be, what we deem a safe operation. So although we're not looking at 100% accuracy in terms of the online forecasting systems, they've improved exponentially in the last decade, of course, and the fact that we now have fairly reliable internet connections means that we can use them more and more to increase safety, to reduce the risks that we might be taking. I have no doubt in my mind that lives have been saved. So safety of life at sea has increased as a result of the development of all these online weather forecasting tools. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And so we'll move to our next presenter here. Captain Alvaro Scardilli leads the Argentines Ice Service and Navy Weather Service under the auspices of the Naval Hydrographic Service. Captain Scardilli has a degree in atmospheric sciences from Buenos Aires University. He represents South America and the Caribbean for the Global Ocean Observing System and the joint WMO-IMO Collaborative Board. Captain Scardilli has operational experience with Antarctic cruises on board the Navy ships conducting summer logistics operations. Over to you, Alvaro.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I would like to give you a perspective of the southwestern Atlantic Ocean and the Southern Ocean in our region of responsibility, that is the Metaria 6 and Navaria 6. And regarding the marine weather information that is provided for mariners, we have two components in our region. One is from the National Weather Service, that is the Metaria coordinator, that includes the provision of the weather forecast and weather warnings. And on the other side, we have the Naval Hydrographic Service, that is the Navaria coordination for the same region. In this case, they match. And we have the wave forecast and the ice service information. What is important to notice that Metaria coordinator doesn't transmit the Navaria information. So if you need to look for weather, you will have to go to the Metaria message, and if you need the waves and ice information, you will need to go through the Navaria coordinator. And that's a very important thing to notice. Winds, waves, cyclones, visibility, all these factors are very specific for our region. We have, this is just something to put you on the area we are looking now. It's an area with a lot of extratropical cyclones activity, with the track of the storms is all around the year. a lot of extreme weather systems going around, not only in the southwestern Atlantic Ocean, but also in the Southern Ocean, in the northern part of the peninsula. And the other aspect that we need to include in this region is the sea ice and the icebergs. This is the last two charts from the current situation, the sea ice edge and the iceberg risk charts. And as you can see, we are now reaching the maximum extent of sea ice that every year is lower, apparently. But the very interesting thing here is that icebergs are now drifting away to the north. And we are now having icebergs, as you can see in the green parts of the iceberg risk chart, where we didn't used to have icebergs. Ships over those regions are not aware of icebergs regularly. They are not familiar with sailing in icebergs waters. These kind of products are made by ice analysts at the Argentine Ice Service, and it's very important here to remark that we need these kind of products to reach mariners, all of them. Not only SOLAS vessels or big vessels, we also need to reach small yachts, fishing vessels, sailboats. All of those need to access this information. And what is also important that to produce these kind of products, the level of process, the level of knowledge to interpret and generate these kind of products requires knowledge and expertise by an ice analyst. We cannot trust the safety of life at sea in automatic procedures, not only on those kind of products. We need products that are made by persons who knows what is going on the region. The detection of icebergs is absolutely very difficult. It needs a lot of level of process of the SAR data, for example. I would like to end with this case. It's a very recent case, and despite the reasons that case that provokes the sinking of the Argos Georgia fishing vessel with 9 deaths and 4 missing persons. It was very tragic, of course, but I would like to mention the metocean conditions that were in the area at the moment of the sinking on July 22nd of this year. As you can see, I don't know if this works, if I go here, no. Okay, I cannot show you, sorry. But if you can see on the screen, the winds were about between 40 and 45 knots. The waves were between 8 and 10 meters. There was a very big extratropical cyclone in the area. And in the iceberg risk chart, you can see the start with the last position known of the Argos Georgia ship. It was in an area surrounded by icebergs. Those icebergs, in very bad weather conditions, it's very difficult to detect, to see on the bridge of the ship, and it's also very difficult to detect using automatic SAR identification of objects, because the roughness of the sea increased the noise on the data. So for that, we need to have a more detailed process and to finalize with this kind of products. These areas are, as I told you, are not usual to have this amount of icebergs, but this is the current situation from the last 2 years in the South Atlantic Ocean, at least in this part of the South Atlantic Ocean. This also affects the search and rescue mission for this ship, because it had to be suspended for a couple of days until the bad weather conditions pass. The combination of the icebergs and the bad weather can be worse for not only for the safety of the navigation, but also for the search and rescue missions. So the challenges that I would like to mention to rise in this meeting is that we need better coordination between institutions, not only in the national, but also in the regional level. We are next, Argentina is next to two other Metarea and Navaria coordinators like Chile and South Africa. We need to have more and accurate metocean observations. As we saw all over the week, observations in the South Atlantic and the South Pacific Oceans are very few. Improve communications between services and the shipping, fishing, and tourist industries, not only for reaching them, for involving in the voluntary observing ship, but also to be aware if they really know what we do and if we really know what they need. So it's in both ways that we need that kind of communications. Increase the deployment of buoys for operations and for research, and raise awareness of what ice services can provide to mariners, to tourist industries in Antarctica and also in the South Atlantic Ocean, for fishing vessels in Antarctica and subpolar waters, where now we are facing with a new hazard that is big, much more amount of icebergs in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alvaro. And now we will turn to Mr. Kenneth Kerr. He is the Science and Technology Officer of the Caribbean Meteorological Organization and the chair of the WMO Regional Association 4's Services Committee. For most of his career, he's delivered weather and climate information, products, and services on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Kenneth was Trinidad and Tobago's principal delegate to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change from 2012 to 2022. Over to you, Kenneth.
Thank you, John. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity to share how Caribbean Met Services can improve safety at sea if given access to resources. I don't have much time, but I have a lot to say. So I want to start with a snapshot of the Caribbean. Here you can see on the left in the black boxes the islands, and to the right at the bottom, they're very large exclusive economic zones. And because of these large zones, by their very nature, these nations are highly dependent on their maritime sectors for a number of activities as outlined on screen. And within these exclusive economic zones, the vast majority of operating vessels are small to medium in size and engage in local and regional shipping activities where importance is placed on safety. But just to highlight the kind of issues related to the sea that we face, with search and rescue and marine emergencies for missing people and vessels occurring regularly, it is a major challenge for the region. The region also faces disruption in inter-island ferry services due to hazardous seas, as well as marine pollution emergencies for oil spills and sargassum mat influx. And of course, there is threat to life and property from lightning strikes and squall lines and least, or at least last but not least, hurricanes, as we know. So that provides the region with a number of requirements or needs by the sectors that the National Met Services have to grapple with. The key ones are shown here, and I won't go through them. But our Met Services face capacity challenges which hinder the delivery of marine weather services that are sufficiently scaled to the island's requirement. For us, the largest hindrance is sparse marine observations. And I heard the cry earlier in the week, but no, more satellites are not sufficient for us. We need more, a lot more in situ marine instruments. We have limited to no real-time fine detail air-sea interaction or interface data, such as waves, swells, and winds. In fact, where there is data, it's mainly available from the US and French territories, and often that data is too far from our coastlines to be reflective of the needs where our vessels operate. Additionally, our forecasters lack access to tools that can easily identify evolving threats within the coastal regions and lack access to sufficiently high-resolution ensemble modeling, both for the ocean and the atmosphere. And here you can see the difference between the high-resolution data available to both Puerto Rico on the right and Martinique and Guadeloupe at the bottom left, compared to the coarse global model data at the top that is available to a lot of the Met services in the region. But why are we focusing on the in-situ observations? It is because these air-sea interface processes in the region are the key to accurate and timely forecasts of smaller scale hazardous seas and weather conditions. And if you look at the common hurricane paths in the black box at the bottom to the left, you could see comparatively the limited number of in-situ marine observations to the east of the islands in the image to the right. And so the greatest limitation to accurate and timely forecasts and warning in the region is scarcity of in-situ marine observations. But the Met services are also faced with other critical barriers related to affordability and sustainability. As many struggle to procure and maintain observation networks, many don't have access to the expertise and capacity to implement scaled marine models, and they are faced with inconsistent funding for simple things like renewal of software license. So here, for example, I'm demonstrating in 2015 in Trinidad and Tobago, their Met services developed an ArcGIS-based marine product after user engagements, which produced drift estimates to aid the tracking of drowned victims or missing vessels at sea that reduced the time taken for the local Coast Guard to find missing vessels or people who drowned or victims. And the image to the top and bottom left were actually successfully used by the Coast Guard to find a drowned victim. And these, to put this in perspective, these products reduced the time that the Coast Guard had access to data, drift data, by 3 to 5 days. Prior to this, they had to ask Puerto Rico for data, and sometimes it took 3 to 5 days to get access to the data. So that's just putting it in perspective. The Met Office also produced a sargassum early warning system that provided 5 days forecast so that equipment could be positioned early enough to combat the sargassum impact on the fisheries and the beaches before the mats arrive. Sadly to say, these products had to be stopped because the Met services did not have access to the funds to renew their ArcGIS software. And today, the case is still there. But all is not lost. I want to use 3 case studies to show that good user interaction and engagement practices, when coupled with access to good resources or sustainable resources, it is possible for the Caribbean Met services to deliver useful marine weather services at the national level. On the screen here are the modalities used across the 3 Met services in engaging the marine stakeholders. There are formal methods, including National Climate Outlook Forums, They use capacity workshops, consultations, and some has national policy arrangement. They also use the less formal methods such as focus groups, one-on-one and on-demand interactions, and public surveys. In case number 1, Jamaica Met Service engaged its marine users through surveys and focus groups, which guided the development of stakeholder-driven forecasts and warning language, including easy-to-interpret graphics and warning systems. They even trained trainers to train fishermen on weather warnings. Here, for example, their co-designed marine forecasts and warnings that moved from text format on the left to more user-friendly graphics on the right, including coconut palms being bent by the wind to convey the wind's strength. And they also developed a 3-color marine system instead of the 4-color, the typical 4-color. And let me just pause here for a second, because when the Met Service met with the fisher folk, they went there with the 4 colors. That is typical of a cap. But the fishermen told them that, look, under yellow conditions, our livelihood depends on going to the sea, and we will go out nevertheless under yellow. And so we would prefer just 3 colors when we know that the conditions are terrible, and that's orange and red, and we will take green just to let us know that it's calm. So they also identified and demarcate what for them were offshore and what for them were nearshore, so that they can warn for the particular areas. Here is the co-designed onshore flag system that they also developed with 3 colors. Business as usual, hazardous and extreme dangerous conditions. Their mobile app also integrates the marine warning icons. In case 2, Trinidad and Tobago used a wider swath of user engagement modalities as outlined here, including national climate outlook forums, on-demand group meetings, workshops, and focus groups. In this graphic, I am showing during an agriculture sector national climate outlook forum with political buy-in, the minister was present. This led to better products that emanated from a subsector discussion amongst the fisheries and fishing communities. And this led to the time delivery of marine forecasts change to meet the user needs. It also allowed the Met Office to partner with a local mobile company that allowed it to send out their forecast and warning in SMS messages to the fisher folk twice per day or while they were warning messages. However, again, after 3 years, the mobile company started to request that the Met Office pay for the services, and so the Met Office had to curtail that product. In this slide, I am showing an on-demand group meeting between the Met Service meteorologists, its communication officers, and its quality control officers, and the fisher folk. And this happened after a high-impact hazardous sea event that was not well forecast, led to significant loss and damage to the fishing communities. And there was a call for the Met Office scalp. So they had no choice but to go out and meet with the fishermen. They recorded the fishermen needs. They will exchange with the fishermen the difficulty in developing the forecasts. And they, of course, the Met Office learned new terms like white rain, yes, and gained new collaborations and exchanged phone numbers with the fisher folk becoming the eyes and informants of the Met Office to ground truth conditions in the beach area. And just last year, in partnership with Cruise Caribbean Initiative, Trinidad and Tobago, with the support from the World Meteorological Organization, hosted a workshop entitled Improving Marine Meteorology and Oceanic Services that attracted over 50 participants from among the fishing community, including IMO regional representative and WMO experts in person and online. And similar to the results earlier this week, the outcomes showed that users were interested in impact-based forecasts and warning, additional marine-related information, more real-time localized information, and making the information more accessible. And on the last day, the forecasters were trained to respond to those user needs from the US NOAA personnel. So coming out of that, those consultations, the Trinidad and Tobago now has targeted marine products, including tourism forecasts that speaks to marine conditions, hazardous seas alerts, high wind alerts, small craft and inter-island ferry alerts, and of course, hurricane warning products, all of which are color-coded in keeping with the Common Alert Protocol standards. In case 3, Barbados partnered with NOAA, USAID, and others to implement a weather-ready nation project over 3 years with a number of local and regional stakeholders involved. And this led to implementation of an impact-based forecast and warning system that included marine conditions. And here, I just want to demonstrate what is possible with good engagement and resources. And you can see the Barbados having scaled marine products and a SWAN model that allowed them to do that. They also has access to real-time observations and now have 4 unmanned sea vessels equipped that they deploy offshore and integrate into their radar system. So in closing, we are recommending that to enhance marine services in the Caribbean, strengthen linkages are needed between the Caribbean Met Services, the WMO, IMO, IO Caribbean, and NOAA and others. And the linkages must focus on building out national marine capabilities by leveraging national capacities and trans-cooperation or trans-program collaborations, for example, through WMO coastal inundation forecasting initiatives and other programs. And we are recommending that the IMO host regional sessions that dovetail to region-specific user needs, and as I said before, access to low-cost marine observation, high modeling system, high-resolution modeling system, and increased data sharing, including more research. And when we leave the region from the research projects, leave the equipment in the region so we can build capacity. With that, I want to thank you. I look forward to the questions.
Great, thank you very much, Kenneth. So we'll go to our last speaker of this session. Professor Dwikorita Karnawati is the director of the Indonesian Agency for Meteorology, Climate, and Geophysics, also known as BMKG. It is, and also the Indonesian permanent representative to the WMO. An internationally recognized expert on disaster risk reduction and early warning. She was the first female president of the Universitas Gadjah Mada and the professor in environmental geology and disaster mitigation. In her current role, she drives innovation on early warning technology and impact-based forecasting system powered by big data, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. Dr. Karnawati.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, which makes me very pleased to be here in order to learn from all of you, as well as to share our experience in our region, in our Indonesian region. So good morning, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me briefly to introduce, not related to this figure yet, but I would like to let you know that Indonesia is actually maritime continents, or we call as the archipelagos, with 17,504 islands. 77% of our area, which is about 6.4 million kilometers square of Indonesia, is water or sea, sea or ocean. So the land is only less than 30%. And the zone of the exclusive economic zone in our area is about 3 million kilometers square. The length of the coastline is about 108,000 kilometers, or the second largest coastline in the world after Canada. So you can imagine how important is the marine weather for the safety of the maritime activities, especially the safety for the people working the ships, including the fishermen. So please allow me to emphasize on mainly the collaboration, potential collaboration based on our existing collaboration problems and challenges, this due to the time limitations. So I would like to start with the end-to-end weather information and early warning system that we must provide for the marine weather, for the safety of the marine activities. So we must dealing with the observation, processing, dissemination, and user. For the user, later on, I would like to let you know there are quite diverse users, starting from the grassroots community, like the fishermen, as has been presented by our colleague Dr. Nelly Florida yesterday, up to the military, as well as for tourist ship, and also for the ship for business purposes. All right. So I must start with the challenges. There is an obvious gap between the technology that we are trying to be continuously innovated compared to the capacity of the user. Due to a very dynamic weather condition in our maritime continents, which situated in the equators in between the big continent of Asia as well as Australia, also in the in between Pacific and Indian Oceans. So we must concern not only on the marine weather in our Indonesian maritime continent, but also consider the regional scale, and sometimes we also affected by rather global scale. So the gap that we have here, one, in terms of observation, the gap is obvious that our marine area is so large. Meanwhile, the limited numbers of observations is the problems. Fortunately, since 2021, it's about 3 years ago, we start to invest about 150 million US dollar in order to modernize and to improve the numbers of our observations, marine observations, as well as improve the capacity of our processing, and also improve the capacity for providing dissemination of information and early warning. Those conducted through collaborations with other countries. We did a joint development to develop the models for atmospheric and ocean weather simulation and prediction. So that's the effort, how we try to close the gap between the limited numbers of observations as well as between the capacity, technical capacity that we have. And the second gap is related to the user capacity. Actually, we have provided, we call that's the INA WAIS, that's it's about the Indonesian Marine Weather Information and Early Warning System, which comprise weather forecast for the next 10 days, and it is possible to be updated every 3 hours through the joint development of the models that recently we applied, with the resolution up to 3 kilometers. However, for the significant area, we can do the numerical modeling, atmospheric and ocean numerical modeling with the resolution of 1 kilometer. So through that system, the ship can have information for the next 10 days, as well as daily updated information. And it is also can be automatically amended or adjusted based on the near real-time data observation, such as through the marine radars. And the problem is when we produce the information, most the information is technical, with the graph, with the picture, with the colors. And the user, especially the fisherman, is not always easily understand about that. Even some of them may not recognize the colors. So it is really challenging for us. So that's why yesterday our colleague, Dr. Nelly Florida, explained how we have continuously provided like a capacity development program every year since 2016, especially for the fishermen. Then the user also coming from the marine services. Those include the private sectors as well as the government agency. Although they have been much more, they have a higher level of understanding, but related to the weather, it is not quite easy for them to understand, especially both for the fisherman and the higher level of user, especially they're not really sure how to respond with the information that we disseminate. So that's why prior to the dissemination of the information, we conduct routine such as focus group discussion to the users in order to work together to compromise about the action that must be taken into consideration when they receive our response. So that's the challenge. And now we need to have, we have had collaboration in marine observation with various agencies in Indonesia, also overseas, and then with the university, National Research and Innovation Center, with the private sectors as well as with the citizen also society, and all the data has been collected in the Indonesian National Oceanographic Data Center. We also deploy drifter and Argo floats in Indonesia Inner Sea since 2022, and we also have the voluntary observing network, which we started about 2 years ago with the ship. We put our instruments to observe the ocean, but also they provide us the weather marine information. This is what we are proposing in order to materialize observing together through collaboration with the existing networks. We have GOOS Regional Alliance. We can see in the maps how is the distribution of the area. We also have Met-Areas-IMO, yes, and we also have regional association of regional association in WMO. So in terms of observation, we can enlarge or strengthen the collaboration between Regional Association WMO with GOOS Regional Alliance. Meanwhile, in terms of dissemination, we can have collaboration with the Regional Association WMO and Met-Areas-IMO. And unfortunately, this may not yet been really developed, and this is the proposal for the collaboration. We can learn from the Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and Atlantic Ocean intergovernmental coordinating groups in the way they provide the tsunami early warning. So we, under the IOC UNESCO, there have been a system which has been more than 10 years ago for the collaboration among ocean region to provide tsunami service providers. For instance, in Indian Ocean, we are appointed as the chair of the Indian Ocean tsunami warning and mitigation system in collaboration with Australia and India for the Indian Ocean. And the region for disseminating early warning system can be categorized into a national region, and then regional, and then global region. So don't we, well, maybe we can adapt this mechanism in order to strengthen the safety of the marine activities through collaboration. So this is what have been done in tsunami early warning. And we, as I mentioned earlier, we conducted joint processing for coupling models maritime, I have explained earlier. And for the dissemination, we have existing collaboration nationally, but also internationally. And again, we also set up the joint SOP marine services in order to do the emergency response in the harbor, in the harbor when there is extreme weathers. We need to coordinate with the authority, port authority, with the VTS, with port operator, with the vessel operator, with the police, and with other stakeholders. Each have their own SOP. However, when we follow our own SOP, we may not have a good collaboration. So we must sit down together to develop one single joint SOP. And finally, we can help, we can stop the accident. In this case, the truck and the car drop to the ocean because of the extreme weather. And at that time, we didn't have joint SOP yet. After we have the joint SOP, this accident luckily is not happen anymore. So in conclusion, the synergy of our agency with the sea transportation can be conducted through this various approach. And again, our main proposal here is how we can enlarge the collaboration at the regional and global scale, especially for the satellite, as explaining earlier. The satellite information that we have now is very expensive, and we need that to be more feasible. I mean, the cost is to be more feasible for us to buy. So thank you very much for all the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Professor Karnawati. So now we will have an abbreviated Q&A session before the coffee break. So I will look to the floor and ask if anyone has any questions. So we will head to the United States.
Thanks. Good morning. Bev, we had the opportunity, I think, a couple days ago to talk a little bit about increasing observations. And you mentioned the good idea about maybe the IMO compendium. I looked that up online. You know, I'm kind of learning as I go. But if there's like a Cliff's Notes version of how that might work to help with this issue, if you could share that a little bit, that'd be great.
I'd love to, but I'm not an expert. Our expert's online, but because we're using YouTube, he can't answer the question, unfortunately. He'll be frantically writing in Teams now. So I can take that away with you. What I will say, and to put this in a bit of context, actually, is that I had a presentation written on Monday, which bears no resemblance from the presentation I gave today, because during the week things have come up and my colleagues have been saying, well, here's an idea. So this has come from him. He would be delighted, I'm sure. He loves nothing more than talking about the compendium and just-in-time arrivals, if you'd like to talk to him about those too. So I'll put you in touch if that's okay, and he can elaborate on his thoughts.
That'll be great. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts on collaborations? Question, comments? Feel free to share your experiences with collaboration with your organization. And I see South Africa.
Thank you so much. Just an observation, and thank for the presentation. I would have loved to also hear collaboration between WMO, IMO, again, also the collaboration, because in a lot of countries, Met Office are not necessarily sitting with the Minister of Transport, who might be the authority in IMO. So the collaboration also at a national level is so fragmented. So I was trying to look at the coordination across both, nationally and also internationally. How do we coordinate our efforts, given that both bodies are heavily regulated? And just listening to some of the discussion previously, there seems to be could be a lot of some gaps that exist in ensuring that capacities and those people, the seafarers, also are capacitated. Just like if you look at the ICAO, where also there's quite a lot of collaboration and interaction between WMO and ICAO, and even deciding on the standards and other things, which somehow listening over the few days that I was here, I'm picking up is not the same as that other body. So just maybe a gap that I've just observed for myself. Thank you.
Are you directing that to anybody in particular to respond to?
Anyone that wants to, maybe might be amongst the colleagues here, it's welcome. So anyone that feels maybe taking it is welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of the reasons we are here this week really is to talk about that collaboration and improving it between groups like the WMO and the IMO at a larger, broader scale, as well as at the regional and national scale. I can give you an example as being a member of RA4 before I retired, and I sat on the Hurricane Committee, and you mentioned ICAO. When ICAO was making some significant changes to the region, they were always invited to the Hurricane Committee meeting because we had most of the PRs in the room. So I think it does start at the national and regional level, and at the international level. If anyone here from the WMO would like to speak to it, or IMO, they happen at meetings like this or at other bodies that the interactions must occur to when it comes to regulatory material and guidance materials. But I think, at the regional level, you have some control in who's in the room with you. And if we start inviting groups like the IMO to regular WMO regional meetings and vice versa, this, may help start to bridge some of those gaps you spoke to. And I can't speak to those parties doing that. I'm just making a suggestion of an experience that I've had within RA4. Anyone want to comment on that? Otherwise, we have in the back. I'm not sure.
May I?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Sorry. To be frankly, we have a dream. There should be a joint resolution among IMO and WMO, because through the resolution, it have a law enforcement that drive the national stakeholders to be harmonized, to be more engaged in the collaboration. Without that, I think we have similar problem with the gentleman mentioned. Okay, so please consider that at the level of the resolution, at least through the IMO, supported by WMO, or maybe joint resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the room with a comment? We have someone in the back.
Yeah, firstly, quick introduction myself. I'm the WMO-IMO Ship Observation Team Chair. Took over from Darren Figurski. He served for the last 5 years, did a great job, leave big shoes to fill in. I think especially for this question about collaboration between WMO-IMO, there's a discussion over the last couple of days actually. There were some thoughts, you mentioned that, meeting like this greatly helps. Another thing that I think, for example, in the past, the SOT-WS meetings, is pretty much not involved too much with the IMO side shipping or industry. So one discussion over the last couple of days, maybe we should think about, joint meetings on technical issues, not only the big meetings like this, formal meetings, but maybe informal meetings. For example, next year, tentatively, we scheduled the SOT 13 meeting in Brest, France. We definitely will invite some people from the industry to join us. And in the meantime, we are thinking have our SOT sessions potentially, into the IMO meeting side, the shaping over industry side. I think this is kind of cross-pollination. Definitely need more activities on this, and I think that's a new direction we need to work on.
Thank you very much for sharing that. We'll turn to, yes, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. One of the conclusions of the first symposium on extreme marine weather was to do a second symposium, more focused on the intercollaboration between the mariners and the forecasters or the weather services. So maybe one of the outcomes of this symposium could be, as Professor Kanawati mentioned, to propose a joint resolution or a joint decision between WMO and IMO to achieve these goals that South Africa, the delegate of South Africa, commented. And I think what Professor Kanawati mentioned, it's a great idea for a closure of the symposium afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvaro. I'll turn to WMO's CERCOM President Ian Lisk.
Yeah, I'll be very, very brief. Really good discussion, this one. I'm going to tease you all a little bit now because at about 11:30 when we start doing the outcomes of the symposium, you might very well see one of those outcomes talking to regional collaboration activities. So, wait half an hour, see what we've got. In terms of the resolution, the joint resolution, I think it's going to be challenging for us to have that as an agreed outcome coming out of today, because that would involve quite a lot more discussion at the decision-making bodies level, but definitely noted. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Kenneth.
Thank you. I wanted to make a similar intervention to Ian. As the chair of the Regional Association Services Committee, I believe that there's an opportunity within the expert teams in marine meteorology and oceanographic services to incorporate experts onto that team from the IMO fraternity. That bridges the gap so that there's a commonality there, because we did also make a recommendation at the end of the presentation that the IMO hosts regional conferences or symposium that dovetail to the specific needs of the region, and that will give an opportunity for the members, National Meteorological Services, to participate and understand the requirements of them from the marine sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, if we're going to keep the time, we have to, but I'll go with one more question from Indonesia. Is that it? Yes, one more comment.
Thank you. I think one of our proposition is to make the volunteer for the observation on ship is obligation. So I think we have to make let's say IMO can produce resolution, so the ship have the obligation to give data observation for the sake of the meteorological process. This is very important, and I think there is for the sake for the accuracy, we need more data from around the world, so the more ships can give data for the processing in our office will be grateful for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your statement, Indonesia. So I'd like to thank the panelists. I would love to have an opportunity to give you each to sort of wrap up this session, but we've run out of time. Please continue the conversations. We're going to go to the coffee break now. Our coffee break is sponsored by Indonesia's BMKG. We'd like to thank them all for that. It will be on the 4th floor. It will be on the 4th floor as it was late yesterday. Reminder to everybody that the final session for the symposium will begin promptly at 11:30. And again, let's give a moment to thank our sponsor, BMKG, for coffee.
Thank you. Not enough time for Q&A, but...
No, not enough time for Q&A.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the final session of the second symposium. Ian's going to be helping to close us out, but we'll take questions as a panel. Ian Lisk, I know, was a speaker at the Polar Side event, but several of you were not here and might not know him. So Ian is the first president of the World Meteorological Organization Commission for Weather, Climate, and Hydrological, Marine and Related Environmental Services and Applications, CERCOM. Since CERCOM was established in July 2019, Ian has led the development of new structures and partnerships to better coordinate and oversee the delivery of useful, usable, and used services, I apologize, Ian, to better protect and save lives and livelihoods around the world. Ian has worked for the UK Met Office in a variety of forecasting, training, and senior management roles for over 35 years, and has been involved in the work of WMO since 2003, primarily through the former Commission on Aeronautical Meteorology, where he served as Vice President from 2010 to 2018, and as the last President from 2018 to 19. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ali. Thank you very much also to Joris as the other co-chair. Thanks also to the respective supporting secretariats and supporting consultants as well who have made this symposium a reality and also made it all run remarkably smoothly. I hope you're all happy and you've had a good time through the course of the last 4 days. I have observed lots and lots of collaboration, engagement, coordination between, let's put it this way, the two communities that we've got. We've effectively got the meteorological community and we've got the marine industry community as well. I'm not going to make a distinction between public and private sector and academia. You know, we've basically got the people that use the services that the Met community actually use and the actual providers of that information in the room. It's been fantastic to see that interaction and friendship right the way through this week. So, you know, really, really successful week. If we're set up with an objective, the one thing we want to do is to get everybody talking to one another, both in this room, but at the coffee breaks, and thanks to everybody who's sponsored a coffee break this week as well. And of course, from my perspective, most importantly, in those lovely social events, we have one on Monday and we'll have another one this evening. Let's make sure that we build on the momentum that we've created at this event during today. We'll have a look at the moment at the key outcomes and what have you as well. We'll go through those and then I'll invite Ali and Joris to lead a bit of a discussion on what you actually see. Just a couple of additional words on me. As you heard, I've been a weatherman or weather person, let's get it right, for 38 years now. I am a man and boy weather person. I chose that industry at a very early age. I love the weather, I still do. I've got images of the Hurricane Helene up on my laptop at the moment. I can tell you that the Met Office has just issued yet another amber warning for rain over central southern parts of the United Kingdom for later on today and tonight. So take your raincoats out later on this evening and overnight. It will clear away by first thing tomorrow, but I'm afraid we've got some nasty weather to contend with in the intervening period. But I chose that career because my dad was a master mariner. He was a master mariner for over, well, decades, basically. He was worked in the sea industry from the age of 15 right the way through until he was 75. So he was a sailor for over 60 years. So this is an industry and an application area that is very, very close to my heart. And it's been an absolute pleasure being here this week. And I know my dad would be very proud of the fact, at 89 years of age, he is now, that I've spent all week at the International Maritime Organisation. Okay. So, without further ado, what we'll do now is we'll go through the meeting outcomes, a summary of the conclusions from what we're doing. So, if we could put the slides up, please. Catherine, are you driving, yeah? Is that right?
It's up.
It's up. Brilliant. First off, bit of a recap on the 2019 key focus areas which were identified at the first symposium. First one was knowledge opportunities. for maritime personnel and forecasters. Number 2, no big surprise, good old observations again. I'll come back to that, I promise. Number 3, early warnings and forecasts. Number 4, this is really important, meeting seafarers' needs via Met Ocean products and services. This is all about giving seafarers what they need, when they need it, how they need it. And again, this will be a theme we'll be looking at again in a few moments' time. And again, the collaboration across the communities. I've already talked quite extensively about that already. So, for this time around, for this year, 2024, 5 years on, key considerations sort of arising from our discussions through this week. So these are just top-level generic key considerations. Climate change impacts in the future, and there's 3 aspects to that. Climate change is and will continue to result in increased frequency of extreme maritime weather. It will also increase the extremeness, if that's a word, of that weather as well. The greatest impact of climate change, again, I'm afraid, is already being felt in the polar regions, in those high latitudes, and that obviously is leading to a changing landscape of risk in those high latitudes for ship routes as well. We should also be mindful of the fact that the IMO, and there's a meeting that's been taking place this week on greenhouse gas emissions, is also leading the charge to reducing greenhouse gas emissions whilst also enhancing efficiency and safety. And our meteorological community will have a significant role in supporting those efforts with intelligent sea routes, efficient sea routes, and the application of new technologies moving forward. So we are looking at a landscape where there are rapid changes taking place also, not just in the climate, but in technology. I'm delighted that we haven't talked too much this week about AI. Every meeting I go to these days, we spend hours talking about AI. But we're all conscious of the fact that it's out there and is a major, what we call, disruption event. And obviously communication capabilities as well. Other consideration, access and availability of baseline Met Ocean information, and the leveraging of private sector products and services. Amy, I'd like to add my congratulations to the fantastic representation you gave to the private sector, the wider private sector, during your talk yesterday. You're in this gang. We've found this across the meteorological community in all application areas. We have to do this in partnership with our friends and colleagues in the private sector as well. And finally, fit-for-purpose graphical products and impact-based forecasts. We've talked a lot about impact-based forecasts over the last couple of days, and I'll just remind you once again of the fact that, in my view, the oldest impact-based forecasts in the world are those that were based on the Beaufort scale, which was developed way over 150 years ago. So let's get on to the key outcomes of this week now. Now, these are very, very top level, okay? We've decided not to dive into lots and lots of detail on each one of these, primarily because we wouldn't be finished by 12:30 today if we did do that. That detail, though, will of course be included in the final report, which will be put together by the team to reflect on the discussions and go into more detail on what these key outcomes actually mean. What I can say before I just go through these is that both host UN agencies are committed to progressing the key outcomes and that the relevant responsible bodies for each resultant action will be better defined and outlined when we develop that report, okay? So, this is now, it's been put together by the amazing team since about 5:30 last night. So burning the midnight oil last night. There's been further meetings this morning, further iterations on these over the last few hours as well. So number 1, competencies, capacity development and training. So this is all about, further developing our skills and the skills of mariners themselves. So seeking further innovative and focused learning opportunities for maritime personnel, forecasters and shore-based support. And again, we can dive into a bit more detail as we go for the feedback session in a few moments' time. Observations. Observations, just to reiterate once again, do support better forecasts and early warnings. Something that struck me yesterday, and I think it was Joris who was asking me, where do you need those better observations? We don't know. You never know what's the absolute key observation that's going to make all the difference to a forecast. Here we are in the UK. We had a great storm on the 16th of October 1987. It was the year I joined the Met Office. One ship-ob, we've done the actual studies on that, one ship-ob arriving late made all the difference to the model forecast for that event. Because it was late, it wasn't assimilated into the model run, and we therefore had an area of low pressure which was too flat, and we missed an explosive deepener across the UK. Okay, so once again, you never know what's going to be that decisive ob, and we are just hungry always for more observations. So we will be encouraging increased VOS participation. We'll be actively encouraging that. We're going to look more closely at providing instrumentation that is more automated. It takes the load off the mariners not having to do the obs. If there's a nice little box sat in the corner, doing it all automatically for you and disseminating it automatically, then that does not become an overhead on the mariner. And my good friend Derek, Scottish fisherman yesterday, having actually said the statement, we haven't got time for that, we're too busy fishing, is now actively interested, and we are involved in a dialogue about the possibilities for exploring automated obs on his fishing fleets. So already a nice little outcome just from the conversations that we had here yesterday. Let's expand those public-private partnerships. And again, just reminding everyone of Amy's presentation, and I think the word from John was the wow moment when we looked at the VOS observations graph, and then Amy superimposed the observations which are available from their fleets. And I think we all realise at that point that we have an absolute untapped potential there at the moment, which we have to explore actively and quickly as well. And we're going to explore options for ship observation champions for the various different sectors as well. We will be encouraging rapid development of the underpinning S41X product specification document. And again, Jeff, let's put out a call. Canada leading the way on this, NMHS friends, all the support that we can provide to that endeavour. Please put your hands up, not right now, but please, all volunteers will coordinate. Actually, NMHS is wishing to support that activity going forward as well, noting the very tight deadlines that we're all working to as well. Canada and the US, I do beg your pardon. United States of America, forgive me. Defining baseline Met Ocean services for end users in our changing environment. And the changing environment we're talking about are climate, technology and comms. What does that mean? Again, Derek's presentation yesterday, which I got so excited about, and apologies for my excitement for the Scottish fisherman's presentation, he talked very clearly about his basic need being the provision of warnings and forecast charts, of isobars basically, and the warnings issued by the Met Office for his operations. That's the basic level of service. Over and above that, Derek buys in lots of additional services from private sector providers. Absolutely no problem with that. That's within his gift. But again, making sure we get those baseline services right is underpinning services is fundamentally important. So that's where we've got to be looking to make sure that those basic standards and recommended practices that we promote within our communities are the right things. And of course, just to finish off on the outcomes, outreach and regional engagement and collaboration. One of the things that we're looking at, we've had 2 of these global events now in 2019 and 2024. We're really, really keen to actually look at the way that we can actually build on that momentum that we've now got at the regional level. So actually looking for opportunities in the regions to have events similar to this, or indeed, exercise in the regional, in the various regions, to better understand regional considerations and end-user requirements, because we've all got different focus areas in the various different regions. And I'm talking about the Met areas as well, but also the 6 WMO regional associations too. So we will definitely be looking at ways, with our respective bodies, that we can actually tap into that regional potential that we know we've all got. So, next steps. There will be a feedback evaluation form. Very interested in your thoughts and comments on what's happened this week. I've mentioned that the team are already working hard on the symposium report. I'm devastated to report that the team will be coming in again at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning to continue working on that report. That's a very brave undertaking of the team. Many thanks for doing that. And then we'll be submitting, obviously, those outcomes and the report to the relevant IMO and WMO bodies. And that's why I'm sat here at the moment. The Services Commission is the intergovernmental body that oversees the work of ALI's Standing Committee on Marine Meteorology and Oceanography. There's then a whole list of capacity development and training which we'll be undertaking, which builds on those outcomes that I've just described. I'm not going to read through each one of those individually now. You can all see them on the screen for yourselves. And I invite you just to check to make sure that your big priority is included within that. Just a couple of things to finish off. If you're not seeing something in the outcomes, or indeed in the next near-term next steps that you really think should be there, then we will be going around in a few moments' time with our 2 facilitators here to actually make sure that we haven't missed something that's big. But I've got 10 pages of notes from the activities this week, my personal notes. There are a few things in my notes that aren't on these screens, but they do sort of fall under the wider top-level titles as well. Okay, so we're not going to go right down into loads and loads of detail, but if there's a top-level theme that you think we've missed, please say so when we invite feedback in a few moments' time. Just going to leave you with one comment. This is a quote from John Parker that he made earlier on this week. We hear a lot of words saying that the weather's very unpredictable. John's quote, and he doesn't even know I'm going to do this, was the fact that actually we're dealing a lot with unprecedented weather rather than unpredictable weather. And I think that for me is a real clarion call, a real top-level call about the challenges that we face, both with the climate change impacts moving forward as well, and the fact that advances that we've made in our ability to forecast the weather, be that with bigger computer models, more observations, the advent of satellite-based observing techniques over the last 50 years as well, and these amazing collaboration activities, ship-obs, the lot, are all resulting in ever more accurate forecasts. One of our biggest challenges is the quantity of information that we now have to make our decisions on, and the consistency of information that we're giving to you as well, and that's another word that came up this week. I'm going to leave it there for now. Again, I am delighted to see how much goodwill, engagement and enjoyment there's been this week from what I think has been a very productive meeting. Let's make sure collectively we all build on the momentum that we've created over the next 4 days and don't accidentally find ourselves in 6 months' time saying to ourselves, "Ooh, what happened there?" I certainly won't be doing that as the Services Commission President. I will be making sure that the outcomes from this do find themselves into the body of work that the Services Commission will be leading over the next 4 years or so. So no pressure, Ali. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
That was an excellent wrap-up. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the statements of support from the WMO. At this time, is it possible actually that we could pull up the slide that was up with the key outcomes? I'd like to keep that present. I'd like to open the floor to comments on the outcomes on whether anything's missing. As Ian mentioned, there's dozens and dozens of pages of notes here, and we will synthesize all of that. All of your contributions have been extremely important, but we want to make sure we're on the right track as we think about this. It was really important to us as we organized this event to build on the work of the first symposium and to also take it to a level of specificity that was actionable. And so you have our commitment to do that. We just want to make sure they're the right places to start. Comments, questions from the floor? Yes.
Hi, afternoon. So I'm with the National Physical Laboratory, and I'm working within the data science department for us to try and understand working within autonomous maritime vehicles. And as somebody who doesn't have a massive meteorological or maritime background, I would say this has been a very insightful conference. It's my first one. And thank you to everybody that's made their contributions and provided evidence of the models and things that are used here. So yeah, I'd just like to leave that comment. Thanks.
Thank you very much and welcome. Yes, Keld.
Yeah, thank you very much. First and foremost, I really enjoyed the conversations that have been over the past couple of days, and I'm very encouraged to see that training and competency development has such a big role here. And actually, a stakeholder that I'm a little bit missing in this meeting is actually the Maritime Training Center. So I think this is a golden opportunity for the maritime community and the IceMed Ocean community to bridge and convey knowledge to each community. So I think that's very important to bear in mind. We have done it in the ICE community for the last 5-6 years, having engaged with maritime training centers, and that has been a great success. And every time I'm giving a lecture at a polar code course, it feels like it's an eye opener for the mariners coming through. And the mariners coming through training centers, they are actually coming there to obtain new skills, but also to maintain the certificates. So it's a golden opportunity to engage with the training centers. Thanks.
Thank you, Keld. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the Nautical Institute, which did help us with this symposium. Some of the speakers, some of the most compelling speakers that we had were because of the connections that those Nautical Institutes had, like Derek. And so I agree with you. That has to be a part of our next steps. We're having a meeting immediately after this at lunch to talk about where we go from there, recognizing that they are going to be not just the Nautical Institute, but all, national, regional, all sorts of scales of those Nautical Institutes need to be a part of this. Thank you. Indonesia.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. First, we would like to suggest, would be that possible in the next steps that has been presented, could we include the importance to optimizing the existing network, both in IMO with what we call that regional, and WMO is the regional association. In IMO, they have relevant terms for that, regional area. So the collaboration is not only between the global IMO and global WMO, but we need, at the national and regional need to be further engaged, that because we learn the presentation showing quite a lot of the regional problems, and the top or global level may support for the capacity development, right? And another thing, we learn also from the presentation that the challenge is getting increase and increase perhaps due to the impact of climate change. I don't know, that's the scientists know more than that. And the technology, especially for the communication technology, like satellite, is also changing rapidly. And it is now the fact that for us in developing countries, we can choose various technology, especially for the satellite technology. We do have access. Unfortunately, in terms of the cost, it's really challenging for us. So we're just wondering regarding all that challenges, would be that possible the symposium is not in every 5 years? Maybe midterm symposium, say like 3 years, yeah, 2.5, yeah. So we can have more engagement. How can we engage closer and closer if we just meet 5 years once? So please consider that. Thank you very much. Makasih, Pak.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Kanawachi.
So just a couple of words on that. The regional engagement side of that, Professor Konawati, is covered by the 5th outcome. You know, that's about, let's look more closely at the regional engagement plans moving forward. In terms of your comment about more regular symposiums, again, what we're thinking is, yes, we agree, but we'd like to explore actually doing that at the regional level, rather than trying to bring everybody back together once every couple of years, 5 years. We'd like to actually now explore a more regional version of what we've done this week and to promote that in the regions for exactly the reasons that you've just so expertly highlighted. We look forward to working with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian, for that. And I think the intervention or the suggestion by Indonesia follows up on a chat I had over coffee with the Caribbean representative, where we also stated that I think it could be crucial to get the different levels connected, so global, regional, national. And I think any partnerships made during this 4 days, they are the enabler to do so. And yeah, well, one just small reaction on Ian said, no pressure to the co-chairs. Well, if I remember my weather education correctly, I thought weather and forecasting is all about pressure. So, but nevertheless, Germany, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the summarizing words. Thank you very much also to Ian for really bringing home the fact that we need to take actions on these points we made over the last few days. Also, very big thank you to everyone involved in the, organizing the symposium and making it possible. I think it's very important that we get together. I would like to add a few words, if I may. I think very important, what brought it home to me again was the collaboration between private and public. Met services, but also marine industry is crucial for us in the next 5 to 10 years to make really progress on lots of the issues. And the division in the past between private and public weather services really needs to end, and we need to work very close together, because in the end of the day, we actually complement each other. We are not competition to each other, we complement each other. Also learn from one another is very important, I think. There were some really good examples. One example for me is always the WASP program that Germany runs with a mainly automated fleet, so the mariners don't have anything to do with the observations on board of the ships. Everything is automated. So that's where we really get good engagement from the industry, because it's not additional work for them. Also, South Africa gives some very good examples on impact-based forecasting. I think that's great to see that other countries moving ahead with that topic. So learn from one another, don't double up on work. I mean, lots of talks I had in the last few months, I just realized that all the weather services, no matter what size and what budget we have, we are dealing all with the same problems. And we all kind of find the same solutions, but we all develop them separately. So why? Continue to develop products, but don't forget baseline services, as Ian said. That's very interesting for me to take home because I'm always for very modern looking products, but actually the baseline products are still wanted from the community. So that was really good to hear. And the last point I wanted to make is the regional focus is good, and I agree with what Ian said, but don't let us forget the global perspective as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Germany. And please allow me to briefly reflect on this. And I think it also addresses the comment made earlier by Indonesia, in my own words, to keep everyone on board. Or in other words, to keep things as simple so that it's understandable and available to every marine user, including that small fisherman in the least developed countries, in the small island development states, who might not even be able to read or write. Sometimes we tend to forget this in meetings like this. It's very easy, straightforward to focus on the abilities we have, the possibilities we have, but we shouldn't forget those people as well. We're talking about autonomous shipping in one meeting, but there are many marine users outside who even don't know what a VHF or an EGDIS is. So keep those simple and stupid products in our mind. Nautical Institute, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chair, for those kind words. It's one of our honors, being an NGO here at the IMO, to be able to represent users and participate in events like this, so thank you very much. Just some of my observations. I love all the talk about the need for training. Obviously, we're a education charity internationally. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm just a simple sailor. But what I've picked up this week and at the last symposium is that we're talking about a lot of change, and the weather is complex. It is not easy, and therefore to help people understand that, we need some good learning materials. I think it would also benefit if there was some sort of standardization at an international global basis so that everybody's telling the same story. And I think the comment by Denmark about the role of the training academies is good, but providing them with some good learning materials that they can use in that to make them accessible for everybody, to make them scalable for all level of craft. The comment that was just made about the small fishermen, I think, is important. I think making them multilingual so that they work for everybody is important. A lot of the work we do at the Nautical Institute is around human-centered design, and basically that means talk to the end users to start with, find out what they need, and then provide something and test it to make sure it's fit for purpose. And if the Nautical Institute can help you with that on an international basis, we'd be very happy to discuss that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. And just building on your comments as well as those of Germany, I mean, everything we're talking about here fits so nicely into the context of early warnings for all. And I think you're offering a really meaningful and important avenue for us to understand what that means in a marine context. Thank you. Hong Kong, China, please.
Thank you. As a new PMO, I've learned great many things and met great many people here, and I would like to say thank you to all of you. And I have two, not questions, but comments. And for the first one, as the only PMO in Hong Kong, part of the obstacle for me in convincing the ship to install the AWS equipment, the automatic one, is that they may be afraid of this equipment would give them trouble when they enter foreign ports. So, and I would like to remind you, and not all devices are made in the West, and maybe some are made in different countries, and they don't have certification or something like that. So I'm not sure if IMO is capable of doing this, but perhaps maybe someone could explicitly demand the port to be somewhat more lenient on this kind of device. And on my second comment, and regarding the making marine observation, we have learned that confidentiality is the major concern of many, many vessels. And I wonder if it is possible to maybe do a survey or something like that to ask the maritime industry what information should be taken out from the weather report for them to have more confidence to do more reports. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick comment on that. I mean, Josh is just thinking of a proper response. I think let's use the word disappointing, that in 2019, one of the outcomes in 2019 was to increase the number of obs coming through VOS. The reality is it's decreased, all right? That is a pretty stark sort of outcome from one of our primary objectives out of 2019, is the fact that we've actually gone backwards, not forwards. Clearly, those issues that China have just raised, the legal implications for port entry and all the rest of it, if they are indeed, which clearly they are, getting in the way of us getting more observations, or indeed less observations than we've actually got at the moment, then clearly we need to explore ways of which we can actually mitigate that risk moving forward. We don't have the answers now. I think that would be an honest response. But it would be very, very disappointing if in 5 years' time we've gone further backwards after all the momentum we seem to have built on the observations side of things this week. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. I think Germany might have had a response to that as well. Go ahead, Germany.
Yeah, I would like to respond to the VOS program. I had the same thoughts yesterday after the talk from Amy, because she said performance information about the vessels are commercially sensitive, and I do get that, and we don't need that as a meteorological community. So that's something I ask myself as well. How can we make the data that we receive from private enterprises and from private industries in a way that they are comfortable with sharing it? And I think there are ways. We've shown it with our VOS program that it is possible, and we could do much more with Maersk. Maersk is really keen to do more. We just can't do it. We don't have the resources. So I think there are definitely ways of improving this.
Thanks. I see many flags, and I will touch upon them all. South Africa, please.
Okay, our input is more towards the recommendations. Whilst we actually do welcome the plans to conduct regional collaborations in the future between WMO and IMO members. What we noted, though, from this week's presentation is that we did receive presentations from the shipping industry, ship routing companies, but would also like to see more presentations coming from the ports and the offshore oil and gas companies, because that gives us a better perspective from the WMO side, or rather the Met services, to understand their operations better. And just to further give an example of these collaborations, if they are encouraged, especially at regional level, there'll be more benefits because some of these members, they have some of the observational data sets which they are not sharing. An example is in our country, the Ports Authority does own a number of weather equipment along the coastline, but we are actually purchasing that data. So the data is not being made accessible to us, despite our request that we need the data for validation of our warnings and the models as well. So we do welcome this regional and when they are being conducted to encourage different stakeholders within the maritime sector, particularly the ports and offshore gas and oil companies. Thanks.
Thank you, South Africa, for that comment. And seeing many more flags up, I might have to address time management here as well. I will take 4 more flags, one from the gentleman in the back, from Indonesia, US, and Captain Manon, I missed you. Apologies for that, and the Miss over there. So, Miss Roberta, am I right? Yeah.
Thank you. The need for in situ data is so critical to this enterprise. The cost to achieve it is very low. The question, the objection about that both Amy and our German colleague just raised is really a red herring. The confidential data that businesses have is already publicly available through the AIS system. So one can see any company, any ship's performance by just looking at the AIS. We know their speed, the time of the destination, so it's already there. Adding weather information will not change that. So I guess I want to totally encourage an aggressive approach to getting more in situ data, and by doing the following: reaching out to vessels in the gap areas like the Southern Pacific, like the Caribbean, like other places, and just look at the AIS. Where do the vessels go? Call up the vessels, encourage them. The cost is minimal. So that's what I have to say, and I just encourage a kind of aggressive attitude on all levels of this congregation. Thank you.
And thank you for that comment. In the back, please. Yeah.
Yeah, very quickly about the comments from Hong Kong about the safety permission concerns. I cannot speak for general policy, but we did have a special case on permission doing VOS observation over the Indian water. And we tried to reach out the WMO-IMO headquarters, but eventually we got that resolved from bilateral communications. So if anyone need help, you can please reach us to the SOT VOS people. Several places you can reach. One is the Ocean Ops, the technical coordinator is Martin Cramp, and also the VOS panel chair, Joel Cabral, or you can reach out to me as the SOT chair. So we'll be happy to help you out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. US, please.
Just want to say that we're very pleased to see the bullet about S41X moving forward and the emphasis. And I just want to remind that I'm not even sure that once that's accomplished with the product specification, that is probably just the end of the beginning. I'm trying to deny that it's the beginning of the beginning, but it's the most critical step that's in the future. There are additional steps, obviously. One is within this community, is on the med area side, and those that contribute to med areas to bring into the fold as to what the expectations are coming forward. The second one, Keld initiated the conversation, has been seconded by others in the Nautical Institute, is the presentation of services is going to change to a degree. And with that is a whole lot of training and familiarization at many, many different levels that's going to happen. So anyway, thank you very much for the emphasis going forward.
Thank you very much, US. Yeah, and that's often the case. When you start with something, other things will arise. Indonesia, please.
Thank you very much. Well, at the first day, we were quite shocked listening to the presentation mentioning that there are only about 3% of voluntary observation ships. And in fact, the phenomena, both ocean and atmosphere, is getting more and more complex. So for the sake of the safety, would be that possible, this organization, especially IMO, which may also supported by WMO, have a strong push, not just encouraging force to be increased as has been listed in the presentation, in the list, but would be that possible more concrete actions, say like compulsory action or regulation, which is developed by IMO as well as joined with WMO regarding this importance of force. That's representing the needs of the global safety, a global community. So please consider to have stronger sentence in that, even say like not encourage, but needs a concrete regulation to make the ships is compulsory to have force. Thank you. Because the private sectors, like the ships company, it is the time for them to share to the community, not only us, the scientists, the experts, sharing our data, free, open access. Why don't they also have mutual responsibility, not only us? So please do consider about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I know we're short on time, but I do just want to tell you there has been a lot of discussion between the WMO and the IMO about that very topic this week. We debated whether to put up a specific target today. We also talked about, though, the fact that it's not only VOS that's going to achieve what you're talking about. All ship-based observations have value. And so I think that it's a multifaceted approach that we need to take, and we're expecting to spell that out a little bit more in the report. But it's VOS campaigns, it's targeted outreach, it's capacity development, there's several different elements, and we're hoping to build that out more in the report. But thank you for your very pointed and accurate question.
The final flag, Captain Manon, please.
Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to contribute on how how you can get more and more ship observation. Actually, if you consider the secrecy of information, this we could avoid, IMO and WMO being very powerful organizations and the custodians of safety at sea. We could take it up with the contracting governments, the flags. The ships can report to their respective flags, and the ship name and the owner could be taken off, and the position and remaining data what WMO wants can be filtered out and given to the regional meteorological areas or a central authority, and then later on it can be filtered and taken by the private providers and everybody. That is one channel. Another is being a tanker person. This morning we heard BIMCO head speak, and we also have the Intertanko There are millions of tankers transiting wide oceans. If they bring in a little bit pressure on us, also we will do it. And there are incentives that, like AMBER, weather reporting and all, we used to get certificates from the US Coast Guards, some options like that. But what I feel very strongly is IMO collaborating with the flags. And our information, the ship, there's nothing secret about it. Maybe nowadays with this terrorist activities and Red Sea scenario, the geopolitical situation, the ownership and the flag, these information should be secret, I think. Otherwise, if you get a position and the weather in that position observed by a mariner, I don't think that is a huge secret. As Madam was speaking about AIS and LRIT, this, I think, the only position and meteorological data filtered out and given to meteorological organization would be a good idea. And that way we can encourage more and more ships. Like the representative of China was telling, if you have a device put on board for tracking and automatically transmitting the weather data, it might encounter some amount of resistance from different administration. As the vessel travels, vessel's route is not constant. I might install something here, and I might go to some other region where it is, like in India, you know, Thuraya and Iridium phones, if they are there in the port, I have to give them a declaration that I will not use input. So something like that. So if we are talking about a gadget which is automatically transmitting the information, I totally agree with that gentleman. It should be a universally accepted one. And mariners are trained to make weather observation. Throughout our third mates to the masters, meteorology is a compulsory subject. So we will not need much of an effort. It is only the collaboration and coordination that is necessary. And what I personally feel is the ownership and the flag and the name of the vessel might be kept as secret, and the remaining data should be given. And that's how all of us will benefit, not only about basically the symposium and all these efforts are to save lives at sea, and it's related to climate change. So we would be able to get you more data from the remotest of the places where you do not have any installations, routers, or anything like that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Captain Manon, for these very useful comments. And with that, I would like to pass over to my co-chair. Ali, please.
Thank you all for the comments during this session, and thank you again, Ian, for wrapping up this symposium with a clear and exciting path forward. We've reached the home stretch, as we say in the United States. So I want to be able to give some thank yous on behalf of the WMO. I want to thank all participants again, both those in the room and those who have been watching online. As a reminder, please refer to the symposium website, if we could put that slide up, please, for photos and presentations from the week. And also look for an email to arrive with the post-event survey that has been mentioned before. I won't do a recap of today. I know we're short on time here, but I just want to say I was not able to attend the first symposium, but I arrived here in London having read the report and talked to colleagues, and I was excited. But my expectations have been exceeded in every way about what has happened here this week, and I'm excited about the vision that we've collectively developed and that we just heard here. On behalf of the WMO, I'd like to thank all of our speakers, moderators, and attendees for your active participation this week. The discussions have been focused and rich. I note that many of you have traveled significant distances to be here, and I hope that you have all found the material and the discussions to be meaningful. I would like to express a particular appreciation to our keynote speaker, Captain Radhika Menon, for her opening comments, as well as those from the IMO Secretary General and the WMO Deputy Secretary General. And thank you to Ian, the the WMO CIRCOM president, for taking the time to spend the week here participating in these conversations. I want to thank the IMO for hosting this event in the wonderful venue that we've had this week and on such a significant week for the maritime community, and the assistance of the IMO and WMO conference support teams for making everything run smoothly. Thank you to both the IMO and WMO secretariats, for those in the room and those supporting virtually. For me on the WMO side, I especially want to thank Sarah Grimes and her team. You are constantly the glue behind SCMMO, and that was never more apparent than this week. I would also like to thank yours, my IMO co-chair. Your collaboration and professionalism were greatly appreciated, and I think that we exhibited great teamwork. I would also like to thank the Nautical Institute for all of your assistance this week and leading up to the event, from help with the program and the speakers to the survey and the technical support that you provided. The partnership with you will be key to the next steps, and I thank you for being here with IMO and WMO. I would like to thank the SCMMO planning team for organizing the symposium, led by John Parker, who was the SCMMO chair for the majority of that time, and without whom we could not have made everything work. Thanks, John. You all, the team, have been working on this program and the logistics for over a year, and we have all here benefited from the exceptional work and commitment. And I cannot end this week without a special thank you to Tom Cuff. Not only was the symposium 5 years ago Tom's idea, which grew into what we saw this week, and he was the chair of the first symposium, but he has been the one working behind the scenes this week, putting all of the pieces together. Tom, thank you for your continued commitment to the mission of safety of life at sea, for your tireless efforts, and for your support and friendship. With that, I would like to turn the floor to the hosts of our symposium this week, the IMO. Hiro Yamada, Director of the IMO Marine Safety Division, will now provide a few closing words.
Yep, thank you very much. Distinguished participants, we have come to the end of the second symposium on extreme maritime weather, which has been fruitful and successful, I believe. As we are experiencing more frequent extreme weather all over the world, the discussions that we had during these 4 days are very important and relevant to mitigate the consequences of extreme weather, which would put the lives and seafarers and the fisheries at risk. Thus, the mid-ocean and maritime communities are expected to play more active role as ever. Reflecting back on the deliberations, this symposium will assist both WMO and IMO to better guide the work towards enhanced knowledge for seafarers and forecasters. This will be also achieved by the maintaining the continuous collaboration between users and providers of mid-ocean information. The discussions on observations and data collection demonstrate how important ships' observations are to improve weather forecasts and provide the accurate warnings that will benefit the maritime industry. There is certainly a need for much greater participation, and we should all promote that. I should reiterate that the ship-based meteorological reports provide the vital real-time feedback on ocean weather conditions. In certain areas of the world, ship-based meteorological and oceanographic reports are fundamentally important for weather forecasters and their warnings. I trust that this symposium will provide better awareness of the importance of voluntary observing ships VOS scheme. The new developments concerning the dissemination of mid-ocean information to ships in terms of technology and services will also contribute to improved weather warnings and forecasts. I hope the symposium will serve as a solid platform to exchange views and knowledges for safer navigation under extreme maritime weather. This event will also contribute to develop strategies and tools to safeguard life and the property at sea and on shore, while mitigating the risks of damage to the marine environment and coastal areas. And also I have to add that training for seafarers for this, the weather, the forecast is very important. So probably from our IMO's point of view, we should strengthen the training matters for seafarers. In conclusion, I'm confident that this event will contribute to promoting the cooperation between the maritime and meteorological communities to improve maritime safety on this particular day that we all celebrate the World Maritime Day. As you know that it was announced that there will be reception tonight, so if you are available, please join the reception. Probably this is the largest reception in a year, even though there are so many receptions at IMO. So hopefully you can enjoy. And so thank you very much, WMO's the colleagues, and also the IMO staff, and of course all the participants, which gives us a very important occasion to know that this is very important the matters. So thank you very much, and hopefully see you soon next time. And as admin information, this room will be used from 2:30 for the town hall meeting for IMO staff. So please leave this room as soon as possible, because the conference should prepare for that meeting. But you can, of course, stay somewhere. But the delegation lounge cannot be used because for the preparation for reception. But you can enjoy the reception. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director, for your closing remarks. And basically, I can skip half of my final remarks. But nevertheless, as a former Navy officer, I'll look to keep it short and will not in detail repeat, in my eyes, the truly spot-on words just spoken by Ali. First, let me join the Director and others in the appreciation for this symposium on the valuable considerations and outcomes achieved. The progress made and outcomes from this meeting must have made it all worthwhile. And as a group, we, through the facilitation of Ian, thanks for that, we were able to basically agree on 5 outcomes which will be presented and considered by several more mandated committees with the aim to turn them into more concrete action items for actual follow-up. And again, presentations and photos are available online and could be consulted through the means presented on the slides presented before. Co-facilitating this event was quite an experience, and I recall, therefore, specifically the great support of both WMO and IMO secretariats for the outstanding preparation and assistance during the meeting, and both organizations for the trust in both Ali and me, and the opportunity to co-chair this symposium. And in particular, I would like to thank all participants for the contribution and cooperative attitude in the discussions. It definitely will contribute to maritime safety in general and the safety of life at sea in particular. And finally, I would like to address my compliments and appreciation to my co-chair, Ali. To me, it has indeed been pleasant, smooth, and a successful cooperation. And may our teamwork be remembered as the standard set for the future cooperation between any party attending this symposium. And again, before we will ring the bell for a final time, I will remind you on all the World Maritime Day's reception this afternoon. You're welcome from 5:30 onwards. And I couldn't stress this enough. For logistical reasons, you are kindly requested to leave this room, including your belongings, after closure, since another event will take place at 2:30. With that, let me not keep you up longer after an intense week. I wish you all a pleasant rest of your stay here in London and a safe trip back home. Hope to see you all in good health again, sometime, somewhere. And I hereby declare the second WMO-IMO Symposium closed.